to go. So, hey, folks, we're back for another live episode talking about what's going on in the real estate market. And a big crapper hit the fan with Cresford. And I got Lucy Moy here, who's previous purchaser at NYC Condos or Cresford, really knows pre-construction really well. And we wanted to talk about what's happening and why it's happening, and go through some of the rumors that we're seeing online. So Lucy, I know you bought at NYC. Just generally, how was the quality of the construction that you were seeing?
I mean, this was a while back, right? I'm just trying to think back to even when I purchased it. This was, I think it was pre-construction around 2009, 2010. I think it closed. I mean, don't use these statistics at all. I mean, like I was joking around with Brian, I actually haven't visited the property probably since it first occupied. But I think at the time the build quality was probably okay. I wouldn't say it was they were knocking it out of the park. But I think at that time, for the price point, price per square foot and the location, I think it was about average.
Yeah, so it's about average. So what's happening right now is that they're going into receivership. There's some huge cost overruns right now, and as a result of the cost overruns, they are going into bankruptcy, most likely. All the purchasers' deposits are going to be returned, and they will have an opportunity to buy later on, but there's no hope for this, because for purchasers to keep the units at the prices that they were paying right now, because costs have skyrocketed. Shoring costs have gone up huge. And I prepared a little chart here, a little graph here, talking. I'm going to share it with everyone, showing what the price per square foot that these people bought it at and compared to the market. So we're seeing right here, for example, Casa 3. Let's go 33 Yorkville. Bear with me. We're getting a lot of people coming in. So 33 Yorkville, and this, according to this, the units here are on average $1,500 a square foot. Now we're seeing resales in the area going higher for that price. So it's almost a guarantee that these contracts are going to be canceled. Most likely what's going to be happening is that these people are going to get their deposits returned. Real estate agents who sold into the building are not going to get commissions. Any money paid up front for upgrades are probably going to be gone. Interesting thing is going to be happening. What's going to happen to assignments? I suggest everyone contacts their lawyer. We had a situation like this in Vaughan, and really no one, I don't know to what end the lawsuits are, what's going to happen with these lawsuits. I feel bad for the purchasers, but no one's going to get anything out of this. And I think, going class action lawsuits and everything else, I just don't know where it's going to lead and how it's going to flow, how it's going to happen, because these contracts are really weighted in the builder's favor. Mm-hmm. And they're going in receivership. Now, YSL is an interesting project because they're involved with Timber Creek on that, and maybe they'll take it over and continue on with it. It's a more recent one, but these other ones, I've been hearing with the cost overruns in 33 Yorkville in particular. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but 33 Yorkville, they have to replace all the parking that the city of Toronto had on that lot initially. They have to go 6 levels down at least. And we're hearing the price per square foot in order to make that number make sense with all those cost overruns is over $2,000 per square foot. So someone buys 33 Yorkville based on the cost overruns, a builder's going to have to sell it for $2,200 a square foot.
Wow.
So just no way that these projects are going to go forward as is, and people are not going to get their contracts honored for the purchase and sale.
So I know that you're obviously not an attorney or anything like that, but you mentioned something interesting regarding, potential for class action lawsuits. What is the reason for that? Is it because people are not getting their deposits back, right? Because obviously they are covered by Tarion.
Yeah, I mean, deposits are for, I mean, they have to be, in order to build a condo, the deposits have to be held in trust. There's specific rules that lawyers have to adhere by. With that, they can't release the funds to the builder. It's really protected. So I'm not worried so much about purchasers' deposits, but the big thing is that the contracts for the prices that they bought it for are just not going to be honored. The costs, what we're seeing right now, the cost overruns are so huge. Now, what happened was is that everyone uses Altus as their guidelines for estimating stuff. So these
Mm-hmm.
projects were launched some time ago, and really in the last 2 years, costs have gone up so significantly that many projects, if they haven't started construction yet, they are like in a tough situation. If they launched more than 2 years ago and they haven't started construction yet, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I would be worried about those projects. And if they're not seasoned builders, um, who knows what's going to happen. Now, the reason why this is really bad for the industry is it's Cresford. They've built so much, their experience. How could this have happened? Now, we're seeing rumors online that, if I'm going to do a screen share here, and I don't like talking about rumors, but it's just interesting to see what's been happening online about this project. So I'm pulling it up here. So here's my spreadsheet showing like just feasibility. The market's gone up so much. Look, Halo, they opened up at 882 per square foot. It's double that. So it just, these projects at these prices that people have paid, there's no way they're going to go through. But online, we're seeing here that people are saying, and I'm getting a lot of people coming in. Um, this is a story. This is what we heard. What Maria took a lot of money under the table to accept unfavorable construction contracts, and she was
Mm-hmm.
caught. The contracts already blew a huge hole in Cresford's pocket. And then at one point, she led people trying to buy Cresford out for cheap. They were never a huge builder, but and if that was true, I mean, we'll see what happens in court. They're suing each other right now, but the contracts that they put in place for construction, and if they haven't been tendered out, are not going to make this project make sense at the prices that people paid. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I think I mean, obviously it's very unfortunate for the people that got tangled up in this, obviously the people that were waiting on units to be completed, right? So it's really kind of almost an opportunity cost kind of situation where now they don't have units that are going to be completed at the prices that they initially paid. And for them
Yeah.
to actually get back in would be significantly higher, right? Um,
Yeah, significantly. And like look at, for example, Clover. People are saying, how could this project be canceled? Well, the project is not going to be canceled. Your contracts are going to be canceled. And they are significantly under, like they've significantly done construction, but there's precedence to this. Um, back in the day, 11 St. Joseph was canceled and relaunched, and it was sold as a resale building. So that's what's going to happen with these projects, even though they're well underway, is that they're going to be resold at a higher price, and it's going to allow the creditors and everything to make money. We're hearing that Concord is going to be buying a lot of these sites. A lot of builders are looking at it. A lot of listing brokerages that represent builders are running their numbers, doing feasibility studies and everything else to see what they could sell it for today.
mhm.
And it just it, it's a really bad situation because these people paid such really great
Oh, yeah.
prices.
To delete the other one or?
Um, it's live, it's out there, it's flowing online, but we're on now. So yeah, we got hacked, or we gotta we're playing with Zoom, and things like that happen. So someone posted a link on 4chan, and we got some assholes going on, which is funny. But you know what? I noticed that when people were coming in, it was blowing up. We had about 70 people coming in, and all with Asian names. So a lot of this is a really big topic right now, Cresford and how they're going under, and a lot of these Asian buyers did buy, and who knows where those people are coming from, but it looks like they had Chinese characters in their Zoom names, so they figured out, and I couldn't mute them, so it was really interesting how you can do that. So we have to change the settings going forward if we do want to have viewers, which I haven't figured out how to do yet. But yeah, Lucy, so it looks like these contracts are not going to be honored, going back to what we were saying, and they're going to be relaunched with a new builder. Definitely 33 Yorkville, definitely Halo, definitely Clover are going to be relaunched, and maybe the purchasers will have the opportunity to buy it at the new pricing, the first opportunity. But it's really crappy because, you know, some of those projects, they've doubled from what people bought if they bought early enough.
Mm-hmm. It almost reminds me of, I mean, I don't know about doubling at that time, but the One Bloor projects, right? When people were lined up all around, and there were some issues there, obviously, because of financing at that point, right? After the market collapse in '08.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's unfortunate. It does happen. And I think this is especially when looking at the reputation of the builder, it certainly makes a huge difference in working with agents that are very familiar with the product that they are selling, and developers that are also, you know, they're known to deliver a quality product on time and on budget, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a really bad thing for the industry, what I was mentioning in the previous video, because really you're buying pre-construction, it's a leap of faith. You are trusting the builder to build it. And you couldn't have dotted your I's and crossed your T's enough with this particular builder in most cases, because I mean, you've bought there, you've sold there a long time ago at NXT, you personally own it. They delivered for you and you got your unit, which was all good. I don't know what's going to happen going forward, because this is a big deal, and we're hearing rumors of another project. I'm not going to name names until it kind of comes out, but another big project is in financial issues right now, especially with cost overruns and how
Mm-hmm.
prices have gone up. It looks like it's going to be canceled, relaunched too, very near to One Bloor that happened. So that area is going to be a bit hexed because of that. We're just hearing rumors of another project going down. We'll see what happens.
So if I'm a consumer or somebody thinking of buying a condominium, I mean, what are um, some good practices or anything that they can do, right? If they're considering different projects to avoid, or is it just like is it based on your luck, or?
No, well, I mean, there was agents, it was no secret that like on the outside Cresford seemed like a great builder, but there's no secrets that they had some warts on them. And I think that if you spoke to a number of real estate agents, they would have given you their honest opinion. I mean, I've been selling it since 2012 and I haven't sold anything since NXT. When did NXT come out? Like 2011?
I think so, right around that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's about 9 years. I actively did not, though I don't remember if I had someone that absolutely insisted that they wanted to buy. But like, for example, my last conversations were with people who were looking at YSL,
Mm-hmm.
and I told them to buy 543 Richmond instead. There's a couple people also looking at it, and I mentioned that maybe they would consider King Toronto might be a better deal for
Mm-hmm.
them based on just what they're looking for. I don't know. I can't remember if anyone that I recommended not to ended up buying, but I never promoted their projects. We had a really bad experience with it, and just, you know, from being in a construction background, if you're bad with cash flow, paying your trades and paying your people, I mean, how are you going to be managing a development?
Absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
even down here, Brian, I'm looking at some of the new projects that I've gotten involved with, or with some of the largest builders, and like the longest, I mean, you have DR Horton, Pulte, Lennar. I was actually talking to one of their senior VPs over at Pulte, and they're actually cash builders, right? So
Yeah.
very, very strong cash positions. And I know with homes, the time to actually construct homes is a lot shorter than condominiums. But certainly, having a long-term reputation, and being in a strong cash position, sets aside some fears, right?
Yeah, it just from a financing perspective, it's really difficult for builders to do that because it's the cost of capital to just put all that equity down. Our industry is built on moving money in and out quickly, and builders that are efficient at building those relationships, getting those good deals, because with land prices and construction costs going up, that can make or break your deal as how
Mhm.
you put together the whole financing end of it. So they, I mean, online we're hearing stuff that they were taking, they were doing cash equity calls, but they were not putting their cash in, instead funding their lifestyles. We have to see what happens in court, but the court documents are really interesting to see. I'm going to pull it up here. Let's see here. And while we're talking, it's unbelievable how my phone is blowing up. I guess people want to come back on and see what we're talking about. Yeah. So, like reading this stuff, it's a 33-page document talking about how how like how the deals went down. And this was, I thought, interesting. Reading here, Cresford's lenders required the owners of each project to make a significant equity investment before funds were advanced. Mr. Casey, who's the owner of Cresford, the primary role is Cresford secured these equity investments. They were critical in order to complete the projects, and they needed a stable source of equity funds. Without such funds, Cresford would not meet its commitments. And the the thing is that we're hearing that he was not putting equity in; he was using debt, and it overran the project. And with the cost overruns, with no equity in the deal, no cash, and no cash to cover the cost overruns, which are hugely overrunning right now, that this deal has nowhere to go. There's no money in it. There's really none
Oh,
in
that's
none of
really
these deals. Yeah, I mean, like this is actually this is actually really interesting stuff that they've put together in here.
hmm
Um, you know, oh man, it's like a he said, she said stuff. So one end we're hearing that she's doing a coup d'etat where she's getting people to, I mean, online, we could just see it online. And then for whatever reason, they just ran out of cash. But even if they didn't, even if it was some kind of politics in place, the costs have just gone up so high
hmm
that it just doesn't make feasibility sense. So I think one good thing that people should do when they're looking at builders is also the cash position, which is good, but it's rare for it to have builders with those big cash positions, is to look for builders with a history of starting constructions really quick. Because when you start construction quick, you tender out stuff, you lock in those costs, and avoids huge cost overruns. One builder that comes to mind that does this is Center Court. Almost they only bring to market projects that they can start construction on it really quickly. Builders that have good equity positions and are really experienced with construction, like for example Tridel, really good builder, and they've been around forever.
Yeah.
um, and really their buildings are destination buildings on the resale market, where people want to be in those buildings. Even though they could be 30 or 40 years old, people still want to be in those buildings. Like, young York Mills, those buildings just south of York Mills,
Yep.
as soon as the unit comes up, they go in multiple offers almost before they go in the MLS. That's a Tridel building. And I could highlight a lot of Tridel buildings that are like that.
Yeah. So I think
So
it's really important. It's just as you mentioned, right, to find a reputable builder with a long-term history of delivering quality product.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the
Brian, I can't hear you.
In pre-construction in the States, what is it like for, like, how do builders with condo buildings, like, for example, you have some experience in Manhattan. What do they do? Because I find that they mainly build first and then sell.
Actually, I don't have experience with Manhattan buildings.
Yeah.
But right now, where I'm focused actually is on new home builds down in the Atlanta area, right? But those are
Yeah.
single family homes as opposed to condominiums, but close enough, Brian.
Yeah. So in Atlanta, the builders that you're working with have huge cash positions that you were saying,
Yeah,
and they are financing it almost themselves. They
pretty
have a
much.
lot of equity in it.
And they have deep reserves, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Are they raising that money from, like, from people, wealthy investors? Do you know? Or do they just
Um,
have the cash within their company?
yeah, they're publicly traded, so they have
Oh, okay.
obviously access to that, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so that really helps them out. But I would also like kind of want to actually, never mind. Continue on. I'll think of my
Yeah.
point in a second. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you, this builder in 2008, were they sticking around back then? Did they go bankrupt back then and just relaunched, or were they able to weather through that storm in 2008? Because it hit the States a lot harder than it hit here.
Absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned, DR Horton. They are the top builder in the US, right? And they've been around since 1978. So they've weathered a number of storms, right? So that really lends to their credibility in terms of being
Yeah.
able to turn things around. I know their share prices are down quite a bit this year, obviously, with things that are happening. But, again, I think I mentioned earlier in one of my posts that we kind of went through, and maybe I'm pulling back a little bit here, but we kind of went through the 2008 financial crisis and mortgage crisis. And then we also were hit with the H1N1 pandemic right after that. And we were able to come out on top. So I think for now, there it's just kind of a wait and see type of pattern, but I don't really see much happening from that end. So I think we're in a pretty good place.
Yeah. And just overall, what are you seeing right now, the way that Americans look at our condo market?
You mean on the Americans
Just how
looking?
yeah, like, what do they think of Toronto when they're looking at us? What's your,
Well, I actually, I think they are seeing the success of the Canadian immigration story. It's kind of like the envy of the world, right? What's going on there. I think I was just talking to my mentor the other day, and he was working with one of the students that he has up in Toronto, and I think he just picked up three $1.5 million condos. This is fairly recent. It's just based on the demographics and the fundamentals, and actually running through the numbers, and they were actually throwing off over 20% total yield, almost 30% actually. So it was really
wow.
impressive. So, I mean, if you actually pick the right projects and you actually are very methodical in your approach, there's a ton of great opportunities, even though prices may seem a little bit higher, because that's kind of the story that we hear down here is that, Vancouver, Toronto, like all of these cities are overpriced. But certainly with the US dollar kind of getting to be a little bit higher than it was, I think last time I checked, I was at 1.48, the conversion rate. So, I mean, I think there could be some opportunities, right, on the currency exchange.
Yeah. So you think that people will get a better return because of that currency exchange?
Yeah, and then also the fact that it's the real estate in Canada is considered very stable, obviously. Same in the US as well. I mean, it's kind of, I was looking at another article from, was it Roofstock or one of those online investment companies, and their searches are way up in terms of people overseas looking to actually park some money into residential real estate. This is specifically in the US, but I'm sure, Canada is not too far behind.
Yeah. So while we're going through this, I'm just reading some of this documents here. I wanted to get your reaction to this. So I'm going to read this here. This is the court documents that we're seeing here. So Mr. Casey's secret loans. Cresford did not actually make any equity investments that was contractually required to make and claimed. Instead, Mr. Casey represented that lender's funds borrowed from a third-party lender, OTB Capital, were equity investments made by Mr. Casey. So he was borrowing money and saying that it was equity when they were fact mortgage loans. These so-called equity investments were in fact high interest financing that was specifically prohibited by the applicable loan documents. OTB's loans are secured by every piece of collateral that Mr. Casey could offer, including unsold retail and residential condo units in the Clover and Halo projects. No one was aware of this, and she alleges that he borrowed money from OTB around 2014. She also knew that Cresford had to make substantial interest payments to OTB, and they were significant burden to the cash flow, since interest on most loans in real estate development is capitalized and paid at the end of project. So they were burning through a lot of cash with this stuff that they're doing. So it was really sneaky financial maneuvering that he was doing that people didn't know. If this is true, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. But I think actually right now you're making, like, I was just thinking earlier on, we're talking about all this stuff with cost overruns and just everything in general costing a lot. Like I was thinking, hey, you know, maybe now is actually a good time to look at some resale, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's a good time to start getting your ducks in a row to start investing, whether it's getting your mortgage, getting your line of credits and everything else to take advantage of some opportunities. There might be assignment opportunities where people just want to get their cash that they've invested over the construction period for a condo, and they just want it up front and you could get it at a good deal. That might be happening everywhere. So just be in a good position to have cash to do things
that are going to be closing in the near term if you're looking for a new product, right? So obviously you don't have that, you know, the uncertainty of whether a project is actually going to complete or not. So
yeah. Projects that are almost like completion, like for example, those Transit City projects, people paid a really cheap price for those in Vaughan. They're coming up, and the next phase is over that they're currently selling pre-construction, which sold out within a blink of an eye. Because of that, there's huge equity positions in, and there's a lot of downtown projects that are coming up that took a little while to build, and people bought them at really, really cheap prices back in the day. I mean, we saw, for example, those Cresford projects, some were going for $800 per square foot. Can you believe that? When we thought that, oh no, $1,000 a square foot, Toronto will never get to that. And we blew past that in a blink of an eye, where there's like condos in North York on the resale market that are well over $1,000 a square foot, just regular buildings.
That's insane, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely, the values have definitely gone up. And that's what makes us sad, because this is the reason why people buy pre-construction. It's because they're not making any mortgage payments while these condos are going up. They don't have to worry about rents and maintenance and all that stuff. And they're banking on this appreciation, which makes it really difficult and really sad that this is happening. And with COVID coming out, just something we don't need.
Well, I think that's why it's even more important right now to actually focus on the fundamentals, right? And really understanding your investment before you step into one of these, because especially if you're making a commitment to that extent, I think it's really important to take the time.
Yeah. Excellent. So Lucy, we're going to be doing this again. Hopefully we're going to be doing a webinar. I promise we'll get those kinks sorted out for the webinar.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, but yeah, it was good talking to you, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely, Brian. And I just kind of want to mention that the webinar that Brian is referring to is actually, I'm going to be having, quote unquote, my rich dad, a gentleman who's been doing this for over 6 decades, actually share with us some basics when it comes to investing. And that way, when you're focused on the fundamentals, to really make sure that you're making, making the best, most informed decision when it comes to your investments, because obviously
we need that.
having your investments tied up for a number of years and not seeing a return, I mean, that really hurts.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Lucy. See
Thanks
you
so much.
later, folks. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.